First of all, a very warm welcome to everybody that signed up. We're still waiting for some people to enter the webinar. So again, a warm welcome to the webinar, Where's My Money? How to Claim Unpaid Dividends on Russian Securities. And this webinar is jointly hosted by the European Association for Holders of Commonwealth Independent State Securities, EAHCISS, and EAHCISS. I am Yetai from the Discord group, and with me today is Irina Sibirina. Do I say that correctly, Irina?
Yes, Irina.
Thank you. And she's a Moscow-based lawyer from EAHCISS.ru. Then the topics that we'll cover in this webinar, we'll first talk about the background of EAHCISS a little bit, because this may be a new organization for many of you. And then we'll talk about ADR conversion, the relevant legislation, the procedure how to proceed to claim unpaid dividends, then a little bit about EU sanctions, my personal experiences, and then there's plenty of room for questions and further discussion. So then a little bit about EAHCISS. The background is that EAHCISS was founded from investors that came together in the Discord group. Many of you may actually know us from the Discord group. And many investors face the same problems with our Russian securities, and therefore we decided to start this legal entity, an association registered in Amsterdam in the Dutch law, and there's a lot of benefits to being an association in Dutch law, especially when it comes to collective litigation, but we'll come to that later. So basically, we're focusing on European investors because we're most familiar with European law, but basically anyone could become a member, and investors pay 30 euros a year to join us as a member. There's still vacancies for various commissions, so we're still trying to build out the association further, and we'll probably be looking for people to potentially join our supervisory board as well. So if you're interested, don't hesitate to contact us at contact@eahciss.org. So our activities is to basically represent the interests of our members and represent those interests in relation to the Russian securities and all the complexity that is surrounding that. What we're doing is a lot of public affairs. So we have contacts with regulators, for example, the Dutch regulator, the regulator in Belgium, but also the European Commission, and we're trying to establish contacts with the relevant Russian regulators as well. We're also trying to establish contact with the legislators. So, for example, we can ask members of the European Parliament to ask questions to the European Commission if we feel that is helpful. And we also established contact with all the relevant stakeholders, such as the depository banks. And then another part of our work is to have press contact. So we've had interviews with the press. We are hoping that an article with a big international press agency will be published soon, and we can also make press statements as this official legal entity. And then one of our goals is obviously to exchange and spread the knowledge between our members, and this webinar is one of those activities. But so far we've been mainly spreading knowledge within the Discord group and within the relevant Telegram groups, because there's also a lot of people present here today that will probably know us from the Telegram group. And then I'll come to another point. We're trying to, then use that money that we raise to basically first of all cover our day-to-day costs, so website hosting, IT subscriptions, but also banking fees, etc. So there's a lot of costs that we have to make on a day-to-day basis. But then we can also use other funds to hire experts to then give expert advice on topics that we think would help many of us. And obviously, if you pay for it together, then it's a lot cheaper than paying it individually. And the last point I want to touch upon is that we have the possibilities to undertake collective legal proceedings against, for example, brokers that have been unwilling to convert the Russian ADRs. And actually, this Friday, we'll have a meeting with a Dutch law firm to discuss such collective legal action against some of the Dutch brokers that have been absolutely unwilling to convert any ADRs. Then one of the key points for today's webinar, I think many are here because their Western brokers have not facilitated dividend payments, either for their ADRs or for their Russian ordinary shares. There's been one broker, a Western broker that I know that has actually been facilitating this, but that is Freedom Finance. But I'm not familiar of any other brokers that have been facilitating those dividend payments. Then there's some rules of thumb. So basically, there's no dividends unless you have your ADRs converted. The dividends are paid into Type C accounts. There's no interest on Type C accounts. You have about 3 years to claim your dividends, and it's a fairly complex procedure. And we'll cover all those steps in more detail later on in the webinar. But first of all, let's talk about ADR conversion, because if you haven't converted your ADRs yet, you want to do so right now. There's a window open until the 12th of October 2024, and that's when the OFAC license, General License 100A expires. So time is extremely short. Get to work if you haven't converted your ADRs yet. So what is required? You would normally require a Russian brokerage account. And popular brokerage accounts are with, for example, Gazprom Bank or with Cifra Broker. They both take Western investors. My advice would be to pick either one of them. But there's more brokers obviously in Russia that would be available. BCS is another big one that you could try and seek out. Some require that you actually be present in Russia to open an account. And you can't do it remotely. For example, Gazprom Bank requires either yourself to be present or your representative. But others like Cifra Broker allow it to do it remotely. But in my case, they didn't really open it until all the documents were received in Moscow and were verified by their Moscow office. Okay, so say you have completed that step to open a Russian brokerage account, then the next step would be to submit an order through your broker to have the ADRs cancelled or converted, as they say. There is still brokers that are uncooperative, and we're trying to put pressure on them through EAHCISS. And again, be quick because some depository banks are gonna close the book soon. BNYM will close the books on the 20th of September, and chances are that it will be difficult to reopen the books once OFAC sanctions fully kick in. In Europe, Clearstream will ask for authorization that have been granted on the basis of Article 6b(5)(a) of European Council Regulation 269/2014. Those are the authorizations that they've been asking for. We as EAHCISS share the view of the German Bundesbank that an EU derogation is not actually required when no funds are being made available to NSD, especially when the conversion fully takes place internally within the local custodian of the depository bank. For example, if you look for the Gazprom depository program. The local custodian would be Gazprom Bank. So if you have an account with Gazprom Bank, then that conversion would take place completely within Gazprom Bank. And there would be no NSD involvement. And as EAHCISS, we're also trying to get this across to the national competent authorities of Luxembourg and to Clearstream, and hopefully they will remove the requirement to have an EU authorization as long as you have a brokerage account with the local Russian custodian for that depository program. And again, some brokers are being uncooperative, and this may result in collective litigation being taken up by EAHCISS. Then we'll go into the relevant legislation for dividend payments. We won't cover all the details here. There's a lot of complex legislation, so we'll try to keep it relatively simple in this webinar and focus on the legislation that is relevant for Western investors, or more precisely EU investors. And so we'll not cover the presidential decrees that are more relevant for Russian investors, such as Presidential Decree 81, 138, or 198. So if you have any questions about that, then I'm sure that Irina will be happy to take them separately. And you would be able to contact her after the webinar. The relevant legislation is different for investors from Russia and from countries that are deemed friendly or non-friendly or neutral from a Russian law perspective. And the legislation is fairly complex, especially in case of dual nationalities, or when an investor has a nationality from a non-friendly country from a Russian perspective is a resident in another country that is friendly from a Russian perspective. So in all those more complex cases, I would advise you to contact Irina or another Russian lawyer separately. Then we'll go through the relevant legislation for the ADR programs. As many of you will be familiar with, the Russian companies were forced to quit their ADR programs. Basically the ADR programs that traded after, the ADRs that traded after the 27th of April 2022, so they changed from beneficial owner, they can't be converted. And there were exceptions granted to some depository programs by the Russian government committee, and some depository programs were extended. But basically, no dividends can be paid on those on ADRs in generally, except when the government committee granted permission to extend the program. There were some extensions granted. There is one extension still active, and that is the extension that was granted for the Novatech ADR program. And the extensions that were currently expired were granted to Rosneft, Surgutneftegas, Norilsk Nickel, and maybe some others, but those are the most important ones from a dividend perspective. And you'll see that we quoted some of the relevant legislation in the slides. That is purely for your reference, as the slides will be made available afterwards. Then, as I mentioned, there is a type C regime for both for securities and for the dividends. So once you have converted your ADRs, your securities, your local Russian securities, will be stored in a local Russian type C account. And that basically means that you can't freely access those securities. So you can't simply sell them or trade them. The dividends will also be paid to those type C accounts. So those are ruble type C accounts. And especially when it comes to ruble type C accounts, you can't open one yourself, but the Russian company that has to pay you something has to open an account on your behalf, and then that company can pay its debt to you in that local type C ruble account. And in practice, no interest is being paid on those type C accounts. So although the interest rates are fairly high in Russia at the moment, you won't profit from them on the cash balances in your type C ruble accounts. Then I'll hand over to Irina.
Let me briefly describe the process for applying for dividends in Russia. Nowadays, investors who hold shares through foreign infrastructure can apply for dividends directly to the depository responsible for distribution of dividends. For example, for Sberbank dividends, this is Raiffeisenbank, and for other dividends issuers of other companies, this may be other bank or depository, Gazprom Bank or other. Depending on the custody chain, NSD also may be depository responsible for distribution of dividends. So it's important to see what is custody chain before applying for dividends. The basic package of the documents shall confirm identity of the individual, identification of investor, and confirmation of purchase and shareholding of shares. As far as there are numerous requirements regarding the form and composition of the package of documents, the most preferable form is notarized protocol that confirms shareholding. This procedure of notarized inspection of shareholding can be carried out in Russia. For this, investor shall personally visit notary office or authorize a representative by power of attorney to visit notarial office and make inspection of personal account with certain broker or bank where your shareholding is kept and confirmed. This can be interactive brokers or other broker or other professional entity like banks in different jurisdictions. Sometimes it's necessary to confirm shareholding within personal account, or additionally may be necessary to make inspection what email communication was in the process of purchase of certain shares with the brokers who has less user-friendly websites. For example, some banks, even in Switzerland, have less convenient internet sites or platforms for use and may process some purchases operations via email communication. Like, for example, I remember EAHCISS, broker credit service in Cyprus, confirmed some purchase operations via email to clients. So once the package of documents prepared in the form required in Russia by notary, these documents shall be submitted to the depository, and normally deadlines set for the beginning of receipt of the applications and deadline for the end of this application campaign. This time lasts near 2 months. For example, for dividends, for Sberbank share dividends, the campaign starts in October and ends in November. So there are enough time to prepare documents, confirm shareholding, and to apply. For foreign investors, it's important to prepare translations of the documentation for identification of individual and for confirmation of shareholding. So this part of work also may be planned and made in advance. Because sometimes when you make translation in one office, when translator goes to notary to confirm and do notarized translation, and if you do protocol and notarized translation of some part of the documents attached to notarized protocol, it's important to exclude this. It's important to mitigate discrepancies. So, and it's important also to submit information about details of bank account to pay dividends. If you don't have opened bank account in Russia, it may take time to open bank account. For example, latest experience with opening bank account in rubles in Moscow took 3 months for legal entity from Estonia. And nowadays, unfortunately, brokers and banks refused to open bank account and brokerage account for some foreigners from unfriendly countries. Unfortunately, such a practice is nowadays without any positive perspectives unless we do this in practical way. Some brokers have quasi-Russian or foreign offices in United Arab Emirates, in Cyprus, and such professional participants, brokers, provide assistance in conversion operations. I can tell that there is such professional broker like Atom or Broker Credit Service who has Cyprus and office in United Arab Emirates. And as for dividends, if investors didn't apply until the deadline, then unpaid dividends shall be returned to the issuer. And the next stage for applying for dividends may be used to claim dividends within 3 years of limitation period. This limitation period, 3 years, starts from the day when decision was adopted to pay dividends from the corporate decision to pay dividends. So it's important to apply at first stage of dividends distribution to depository office, for example, Raiffeisen Bank in Russia or other authorized depository, because the next step, next stage of applying for dividends will be more difficult. Because at first stage of dividend distribution, this campaign has time limits and organized in a way to consider applications, to confirm applications for payments. If such stage is missed by the investor, if investor didn't manage to apply at first stage of dividend distribution, the next stage will be more difficult, will require some reconciliation between depository and between issuer. So my recommendation to monitor and to apply for dividends within established time limits before deadlines. That's it. And if you need any assistance with this, we can provide support for applying for dividends. And I also can assist with conversions, but this require onboarding with broker, perhaps onboarding even not in Russia, but in other jurisdictions like Cyprus or United Arab Emirates, and brokers from Atom or Broker Credit Service or Cifra Broker, Finam, Freedom Finance can assist. This will require some cooperation, onboarding, and negotiating of conversion. And besides dividends, we also provide legal support for applying for coupon under Eurobonds. Eurobonds of Russia-related issues like UTB, Web Finance, and others, Sberbank and others. So if you will have any questions or needs and will need support and assistance, you are welcome.
Yeah, I think the key point here is that that there's different time limits. So first of all, you have to apply, you have, or at least you have the chance to apply for dividends through the Russian depository in which the Western broker will have an account. So for example, for interactive brokers, they have an account with Raiffeisen Bank, and so then Raiffeisen would be the depository to apply for dividends. Whereas if you hold your ordinary shares through Euroclear, then NSD is likely to be the depository for Euroclear, and then you would have to go to NSD to apply for dividends in this first stage. And Raiffeisen Bank and Cifra Broker have good websites, and they update their time periods regularly, so you can check their websites and check in which time period you have to claim those dividends. So if we look at the Raiffeisen time period sheet here, then we can see that for Sberbank, we can apply for dividends through Raiffeisen Bank from the 10th of October 2024 up to the 22nd of November 2024. So that's a very short period. So you better start preparing for it right now if you want to claim those dividends. So this is important to keep in mind. And after the the 20th of November 2024, Raiffeisen will pay back the dividends to Sberbank, and then Sberbank may or may not launch their own procedure to claim those unpaid dividends. They launched a procedure for claiming unpaid dividends over the year 2022. And that was a temporary procedure. And our experience is that if you go outside of the established procedures, although you're still within those 3-year statutory time periods, it can be very difficult to claim those dividends because there's no readily established procedure. So that is good to keep in mind. Then there is maybe good to note that if you converted, for example, through Gazprom Bank, and you had your Gazprom shares converted through Gazprom Bank, then there's actually an easy way to claim those 2022 dividends of Gazprom. You can simply write a letter to Gazprom Bank to ask them to claim your unpaid Gazprom dividends on your behalf. So that is, I think, important to state here as well. And again, there are some issuers that have been very reluctant to pay unpaid dividends. Rosneft is one example that's been very reluctant, very difficult to interact with. And again, if you go outside of the established procedures, that then you may actually need to enter litigation to try and get those dividends from the issuer.
I remember when I assisted a client to claim dividends for 2022 year, it took near 10 iterations with broker, with Gazprom Bank, with Gazprom, and it was numerous circles of communication, and finally the client was able to receive dividends, but it really took near 10 iterations. So right now it's the easiest way to apply for first window for dividends with depository. And what else?
Yeah, I think that's the main takeaway. And again, I think if your ordinary shares or your ADRs for those programs that were extended, because you can claim dividends on those ADRs. So, for example, for Rosneft, Nornickel, and Surgutneftegas, you can claim those dividends, those unpaid dividends for the ADRs, even if you haven't converted yet, but only for the dividends that were that had a dividend registration date for a time period when the program was extended. So it may only be the first dividend of 2022 that you can claim if you haven't converted your ADRs. And again, for Clearstream and Euroclear, the Russian depository is likely going to be NSD. For Interactive Brokers, it is Raiffeisen Bank. And then for some smaller brokers, it may be Cifra Broker, because they have a separate website as well. But it would be good to check with your best Western broker who the Russian depository is, although they may not know or they may not let you know. But that's an important takeaway message too.
Let me make some comment. Nowadays, professional participants on securities markets in Russia and abroad in different jurisdictions have such a numerous workload from clients, and actually they are not able to answer every client and provide every client with proper in time personal assistance. And I also see that numerous litigations from Russian clients against Russian brokers and Russian banks, and I can recommend that it is best way to monitor yourself to monitor personally different options and windows of opportunities, because some manager in broker firm may not notify, for example, a client of opportunity, and this webinar and information prepared by organizers association of investors is important because um, give understanding that there are opportunities, but they have time limits.
Yeah.
So,
Can I ask
so
you a
mhm.
question about the statutory time limits? Are you familiar of any companies that extended the normal statutory limit within their company articles of associations to up to 5 years? Because this is an opportunity under Russian law, but there's not a lot of companies that did this, right?
No, I never seen that a company would do such a favor to extend time limits, because it's common that time limits period 3 years, and it's not priority of the company to extend such time period. As for different ADRs, Sberbank do not pay dividends on ADRs, and for example, if appear any request about whether it is possible to claim dividends on ADRs, this shall be considered with a particular company, particular scene of ADRs. And the latest news I heard regarding ADRs, that one of professional participants, Russian in securities market, discuss with the central bank the opportunity to adopt legislation to that would allow to pay dividends on ADRs. This will require a lot of discussions, and no one can predict outcome of such a discussions. I exactly remember a professional expert in this area announced that such discussions started with the central bank, and let's see what outcome will be. I will provide such information upon any progress in these discussions when
Yes.
available. And what else I would comment regarding the questions about opportunity and possibility to notarize shareholding in Russian embassy. Um, Actually, the notarized inspection require such skills and knowledge, experience, and not every notary in Moscow even do such notarial activity to do notarized inspection. I live in Moscow city area, and there are neighbors notary offices which are not able to provide such service. So I have doubts that Russian embassy will do such inspection.
Yeah, well, what the Russian embassy or the notary within the Russian embassy will do, though, is legalize powers of attorney. So if you
Yes.
need a power of attorney, then you can go to the notary in the Russian embassy in your local country. And this is relevant to know because not all banks will accept powers of attorney that have been notarized by Western notaries. So, for example, I've been told that Gazprom Bank in Kaliningrad now decided to demand that the power of attorney has been notarized by a Russian notary and not simply by a notary in a foreign country. So this is good to know as well. But there's other entities that will accept a power of attorney that has been notarized by a Western notary, and I'll come back to that in my experiences later on.
Unfortunately, some of powers of attorneys notarized in, for example, Russian embassies abroad appear to be fraudulent because some fraud were investigated. So banks are very careful about considering powers of attorneys issued abroad, and always it's necessary to do a notarized form of power of attorney and affix apostille on it. And when not notarized but power of attorney issued in Russian embassy, it is not normally included into the register of power of attorneys in the notarized system in Russia. So banks has difficulties with checks of validity of such powers of attorneys, and banks may really require that power of attorney would be confirmed by a notary.
Yeah, and then you mean by a local Russian notary. Yeah. Then we'll come to this point. As we discussed, there's a lot of complexities involved in claiming those unpaid dividends, and why you may want to consider hiring a representative is because they have experience with the procedure. They know the relevant legislation. They have established contracts in Russia with depositaries, notaries, translators, so they know where to go, and they can save you a lot of time. And they can submit the files in person, so you're not dependent on mail delivery to Russia. I sent some documents to Irina actually, and it took over a month to have them arrive in Russia. Your representative can help you fit in the complex paperwork, the forms, review the forms, advise you on how to fill them in. And this is another very important point because we discussed the internet protocol that a Russian notary will do of your Western brokerage account, and those Russian notaries will often require a person to be present with them in the room to do that inspection of your brokerage account, and your representative can be present on your behalf. So otherwise you would have to travel to Russia yourself to have this inspection of the internet protocol being done. And they will help you keep track of deadlines because there are deadlines and some deadlines are short. Do you have anything else I have forgotten here, Irina?
It seems you covered in detail all the process and all the circumstances. During last 2 years, I have been supporting numerous applications for dividends with the Raiffeisen Bank, with Gazprom Bank, and 100% of clients received dividends who applied during first stage of dividend distribution. Those who were late to apply during first stage, unfortunately, applied later directly to Sberbank. And unfortunately, Sberbank, since April 2024, considers applications for dividends for Sberbank dividends for 2022 year and still does not make confirmation consents to pay dividends. This is specific on the side of Sberbank. is not too much client oriented, but unfortunately we have to wait this procedure to come to successful end, because there is also experience that Sberbank also took a long time to review and confirm for payments during application campaign under Sberbank Euro bonds. And during last 2 years, it's actually first time when Sberbank performs such a procedure, considering applications from foreign investors. And Sberbank is so-called very strict and difficult bank for cooperation. Maybe because Sberbank itself is under sanctions. So Sberbank performs with the highest level of scrutiny, but anyway, we still wait for a successful outcome for all who applied to Sberbank. If at the end Sberbank will refuse to pay dividends to someone, there still will be opportunity to claim dividends further, to claim dividends in pre-litigation and then in litigation stage, in case if Sberbank will not pay. But still, there are numerous opportunities to apply first directly to depositories and then to company.
Yeah, so to recap one more time, the steps in claiming those or in claiming those unpaid dividends. So you may look for a representative, and if you want to work with a representative, then you should get a power of attorney notarized. And if you use a Western notary, you should get it apostilled as well. And then you want to have the other documents notarized and apostles. So think about copies of your passport, tax documents, maybe proof of residence. So get all those documents, get them, get notarized copies, or get the originals apostilled. Then you should get an inspection report from the Russian notary that will then log into your Western brokerage account to verify that you had those shares or ADRs on the relevant dividend registration dates. And then all those documents should be translated into Russian, and the translation should be certified by a Russian notary. Translation may not always be formally required, but is considered very helpful. It will probably speed up the procedure. You have to then fill in all those application forms, and then all the documents have to submit it in time. So that's basically the steps involved in the process. Then there were already questions about the costs involved. This was my my estimate, also based on my personal experiences. So depending on where you do the notarization of your power of attorney, it will cost you probably between 50 and 400 euros. Also depends on whether it's an emergency request and where you're based, because some notaries are fairly expensive in some countries. And you want to have yourself you want to get a notarized copy of your passport as well, which may also cost you somewhere between 50 to 350 euros, depending on where you get it done. Then you have the costs to do the internet inspection. It will differ, those costs, depending on how many pages have to be recorded on the internet. So the costs are determined by the notary chamber, and there's different costs for the attachments of the protocol and for the protocol itself. And the protocol itself describes all the steps that the notary has to take on the website to log in. The notary has to trace the IP address of the website, and that's all included in the protocol. And then there's a lot of attachments to the protocol with screenshots, with maybe brokerage agreements, with other relevant documents, and that will probably cost you about €350, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less, depending on how many pages are contained in that in the protocol and in the annexes to the protocol. And then you have the cost of the representative. It really depends on the amount of work for claiming those dividends. I know Irina uses an hourly fee. There are some representatives that may use a percentage fee as well. And now my experience with Irina is that it will take about €700, maybe a bit more, to claim those unpaid dividends for a specific issuer. Is there anything you want to comment on that, Irina? Am I right about that, or?
Yes, you are right. For example, costs depend on the volume of work, and if we go through similar application process for number of clients within application campaign period, the price of service support is lower. And when this is pre-litigation process, the volume of work shall be discussed individually, because it depends whether we had collaboration at the stage when applying to depository or not. This individual work in pre-litigation stage and litigation. And for applying during first stage, it's near €700. And this work may be performed in an efficient way. This means at the beginning of our work, in preparing set of documents that shall be submitted to depository or to the issuer, I also provide necessary requests that shall be sent to interactive broker or other broker or bank to identify custody chain, to request from the broker necessary information that shall be indicated in the application forms. Actually, depositors and companies who announce dividends, they in progress change requirements, this or that forms, application forms, at every time, because this is new experience for all market participants, and every new period and stage of application campaign with every other depository or other bank or other issuer has this or that specific that shall be individually taken into account. So my input here, that I try to, at very best step, arrange that investor would submit full set of the documents in one iteration.
Yeah, and then obviously, the fees will be probably a lot higher when you have to go through litigation, especially when you have to go through several stages of litigation. Yeah.
Yes, litigation is always expensive procedure, and this year in September, new litigation state fees will be higher, considerably higher. So it's better to do application before deadline. I have to charge my computer. Sorry, I just few minutes. I need few minutes.
Yeah, and then there's a fees for apostilles, mail delivery, and translation fees. Let me then go through the EU sanctions. The common view is that EU sanctions do not prevent the payment of dividends, and you will find that in the FAQ as well, where it is stated that EU sanctions do not impose any impediments on the payment of dividends. And in my opinion, sanctions may even be interpreted in such a way that if you that if you can claim dividends from a sanctioned company, then you would have to make an effort to do so, because otherwise, after those 3 years, that dividend payment will be restored in the company's books, and you would probably make funds available to that company. So that is something to take into account. That is also why I decided to claim my unpaid Sberbank dividends, just to avoid any discussions about making any indirect payment to Sberbank once those dividends are being restored to Sberbank after that 3-year period. Then there's the involvement of the NSD in the payment chain. So NSD is the Russian counterpart of a Euroclear, a DTC, or a Clearstream. And NSD will often be in the payment chain for those dividends, especially when you claim them through one of the Russian depositories. And some national competent authorities of EU countries may take the stance that because NSD is in the payment chain, you would that they would consider those dividend payments to be frozen from an EU perspective as soon as they are in control of an EU entity. So as soon as they are in your control, they may consider them to be frozen. And the same applies when you are applying for dividends from a sanctioned issuer such as Sberbank, a VTB, that once that dividend payment is made to your Type C account, there may be some national competent authorities from EU countries that may then consider that balance to be frozen. So it would be recommended that you contact your national competent authority in your country of residence if you are a EU resident, and ask them for their approach to this issue, and you would be able to apply for authorization to have those funds unfrozen again on the basis of several articles in the EU sanctions regulation, and the relevant legislation would be Regulation 269/2014, and specific articles that you would be able to get a derogation on for the unfreezing of those cash balances from an EU perspective will be Article 6, Article 6b 5h, and Article 6b 5i. So if you have any questions about that, you can always contact us, but it would be wise to contact your national competent authorities to see what their stance is on the issue. And then we'll go through my personal experience. I claimed my unpaid dividends with help of Irina. So I talked about my Sberbank dividends, and it was a challenge. So I was grateful to get Irina's help on this issue. Maybe good to know, how did I pay Irina for her services? I used my Gazprom Bank account. So I have a regular ruble account with Gazprom Bank. And I initially topped up the account with a cash deposit when I opened the account with Gazprom Bank in person in their Kaliningrad branch. I also topped it up with a wire transfer from my EU bank, in my case ING, and the wire transfer was fine. And I know other EU investors that were able to make wire transfers from their EU bank to Gazprom Bank. And so I know that, for example, Raiffeisen Bank Austria will also facilitate those wire transfers to Gazprom Bank. And I also topped my Gazprom Bank up through Volet Cash. It was formerly known as AdvCash, Advanced Cash. And yeah, this is what I did recently. So Volet Cash allows you to sort of open an account there, top up the account with Volet Cash with your Western credit card, and then you can use bestchange.com to exchange those funds stored with Volet, to exchange them for a wire transfer that will be carried out by a Russian exchange provider to your Gazprom Bank account. One issue that we will have to look at, though, is that new Russian legislation kicked in that would require owners of Russian SIM cards to get their SIM card account verified in in my case, I have a SIM card with Gazprom Bank Mobile, and I got a text message from Gazprom Bank Mobile that they wanted to see my passport in person to have my account verified again. So those Russian SIM cards that are being used to access internet banking for Russian banks may be blocked in the middle of September. So this is a topic that we are aware of, and we're trying to look for a solution to. My personal experience with my with getting a notarized power of attorney was that the notaries in the Netherlands refused to notarize power of attorneys for Russia. So in the end, I opted for notarity.com. And I did get an online appointment with a Swedish notary that was willing to notarize my power of attorney. Yeah, especially when you have to send the power of attorney by mail, allow for plenty of time for this mail to be delivered to Russia. For me, it took over 30 days to get my documents shipped to Russia, and I used the Dutch national mail carrier, or the Universal Postal Service in my country. I think most, if not all, European universal postal services will still deliver mail to Russia, whereas I know that from the US it's becoming a lot more difficult to get your mail to arrive to Russia. In my case, I was quite late to the game, and the deadline was coming up soon, and in the end I got my notarized power of attorney to be signed digitally or electronically by the Swedish notary, and also got an electronic apostle on it. And I was lucky that Arena was able to convince Sberbank, but also the Russian notary, that that also the electronic power of attorney met all requirements. But in most cases, you will find that having a normal paper power of attorney is more readily being accepted in Russia. But if deadlines are short, you may try to get away with electronic apostles and electronic signatures. And again, most Russian consulates will offer notary services, but in my experience, it was quite challenging to get an appointment. In the end, I didn't use the notary with the Russian embassy because, yeah, I couldn't get an appointment. I didn't manage, and you will find that you would normally be required to take a Russian interpreter with you when you use the service of the Russian notary in the Russian embassies. So you would have to arrange for that as well. And I know there's some investors that use the notary service at the embassies, and they had to take an interpreter with them. Yeah, so that's basically the end of our presentation. We saw some questions coming in through the Q&A section and the chat. I'll first go to the Q&A tab. There's a lot of questions, so we'll try to go through them. And I'll start with the question by AMC Kuwait. Maybe an impossible question, but based on past experience, assuming that the war ends tomorrow, how long do you expect sanctions to remain in place in Russia, the EU, and the USA? Yeah, I think this is a very difficult question to answer. So basically, the question was, how long will sanctions remain in place? Yeah, it's very difficult to answer from my view, at least. What do you think, Arina?
It's really difficult to predict. Unfortunately, not easy question. Let's see what circumstances around us, and hope for better solutions in the future.
Yeah, then there's another question. Has anybody had any experience with Wells Fargo in terms of ADR conversion? Wells Fargo is a US bank. I personally don't have any experience with them or know of any investors that do. But yeah, try and reach out on the Discord channel, I would say, because there's a lot of US investors there as well that may be familiar with ADR conversion through Wells Fargo. Then there's a question for Irina. Do you have experience with websites of Western banks, brokers blocking access from Russia when doing the notary inspection?
Well, yes, foreign brokers block access from Russian territory, and for this, VPN programs cannot be used because Sberbank, for example, prohibits to use VPN to enter such foreign. So we find such a solution to do two-stage website inspection. First step, when notary uses old link to website before broker make such installments that block access, and all links to websites of brokers make Sberbank doubts that a link is correct. So Sberbank requires deep tracing process and demonstration of this tracert command in the body of protocol and in attachments. So notary can enter website of the broker using old link, hyperlink. And the second stage looks like we notary invites investor via video teleconference, and investor from abroad, from personal computer, opens interactive broker or other broker website and demonstrates to the Russian notary all necessary identification page and page with statements on the purchase and shareholding of shares, and fixation dates when necessary to fix shareholding for the purpose of dividends for the certain period. And notary includes This screens from the page demonstrated by the investor and also includes into the protocol. So this two-stage inspection is found as a solution for the cases when access to the broker's website is blocked from the territory of Russia. Unfortunately, this creates additional expenses for the investor, but by now it is a single way to inspect and confirm address of broker's website, and in such a process it's necessary to make a trusted command at every stage when notary enters broker's website using old address link. Trusted command shall be performed on the computer of the notary, and at the second stage, when investor on own computer opens the broker's website, trusted command also shall be performed. This trusted command as a result represents like a number of commands and steps that shall be included into the body of protocol, and screens of such command and completion of such command in the form of screenshots shall be also added as attachments to the protocol.
Thank you. And then there's a question, is the webinar being recorded? Yes, we recorded the webinar, and we'll make a decision later on whether or not we will publish the recording. So we'll discuss that, and then maybe we'll get it published, and we'll also discuss then where we would publish it. Then there's a question, how long does it take to open accounts at Gazprom Bank and Cifra? Also, which would you advise as the better option? So in my experience, it depends also which ADRs you would like to convert to those to either Gazprom Bank or Cifra. Cifra has the advantage that it would allow you to see dividend payments through the app, whereas for Gazprom Bank you would have to go to the branch to get your statements to see whether a dividend payment was being made. Yeah, there is the advantage of having Cifra in that respect, whereas Gazprom Bank is maybe the more established broker and a bigger broker. And especially when you have Gazprom shares, it may be better to use Gazprom Bank, because then there's no involvement of NSD in the conversion process. So from a Western sanctions perspective, that may be beneficial. So there's pros and cons to Gazprom Bank and Cifra. Anything you want to add to that, Irina?
Yes, my latest experience with Cifra during last 3 weeks, that Cifra refused to open account for foreign investor. Russian office of Cifra refused to open account, brokerage account for and bank account for investor from United States. Unfortunately, and Gazprom Bank was not so didn't so refuse. But the client investor decided just to put this issue on hold, and I cannot confirm that Gazprom Bank right now opens or do not open such an account. This can be checked only by practical way in applying for such opening account.
Yeah, and my experience is that Cifra will open accounts for EU citizens, but it's being difficult for US persons, as many financial institutions are. And then on how long does it take to open an account? If you go to a Gazprom bank branch, then they will simply open the account for you if they have time for you, so you would have to make an appointment normally, but then the account can be directly opened for you, whereas for Cifra the account would be opened remotely, and it takes time for all the original documents to arrive in Moscow and then be checked by their Moscow branch. So in my case, it took for about 6 weeks before my application was fully processed for Cifra, and I opened my Cifra account through the Berlin office of Freedom Finance. So I sent all the documents there, and then the Berlin office forwarded all those documents to Moscow, and then the Moscow head office had to verify all those documents, and then fully unlock my account. So yeah, my experience, that took about 6 weeks for that whole process to be completed. I think we went through the services and the approximation of the prices. Then there is a question: does one have to request dividends every time, or are they automatic? Or are they automatic once you've converted the ADRs? I would assume. So if you have your Russian ordinary shares in a Russian brokerage account, that Russian brokerage will pay the dividends automatically. So claiming those unpaid dividends is only for those that hold their Russian ordinary shares through a Western broker, or that still had their ADRs when the dividend registration dates passed, and still have to claim those dividends that they didn't receive because they still had ADRs at the time. So once your local Russian shares are in the local Russian brokerage accounts, then the process of receiving dividends should be automatic, but this is only for those dividends for ADRs or shares held through Western brokerages at the dividend registration dates relevant for those dividends. And you would have to then apply for each dividend payment separately. So in my case, I hold my Sberbank shares with Interactive Brokers, and I would then have to apply yearly for those Sberbank unpaid dividends with Raiffeisenbank as the Russian depositary for Interactive Brokers. And once I would manage to get my Russian ordinary Sberbank shares into a Russian account, then that process should be automatic. Then will frozen Sberbank ADRs missed dividends be lost? Yeah, so we discussed that. So there is a 3-year time period to claim those unpaid dividends. So you better try and get those ADRs converted, although for Sberbank it is impossible at the moment. And as we discussed, there are in the background talks going on with the Russian central bank to see if they can amend the Russian legislation and make those dividend payments available for ADR holders after all. So we have to keep our fingers crossed for those talks. Then there is a question: the $1,500 expected dividend payment administration fee, would that be for each specific dividend issuance? Well, as we went through, a lot of the costs are single time costs. So, for example, the cost for the power of attorney. So you can make a very broad power of attorney that can be used for multiple years. So you don't have to make a new power of attorney for every dividend claim. And also for notarized copies of your passport, you can then simply have another copy made of that notarized copy in Russia, and that is usually cheaper than having your passport notarized again and apostilled again in a Western country. But the time involved for claiming each dividend claiming process. Every time the representative has to put his or her time in there, then you would have to pay for that. So there are some costs that won't be repeated, and there are some costs that will be repeated, especially when it comes to the time that the representative spends on it. Then the question is, are my Sberbank shares converted? Yes. So my Sberbank shares were converted through Interactive Brokers in May 2022 when when Interactive Brokers offered this conversion. And then there is some new posts as well.
I see question. Can I just
Yeah.
comment? I see question. Who is depository for consorts where my Surgutneftegas are held with Clear Banking Frankfurt? Dieter asks. I can imagine that you can ask your broker or your bank where you keep your entries on your shareholding. What is custody chain? And this custody chain will show what is the depository.
Yes, but again, if Clearstream is involved in the chain of custody, especially when it concerns ordinary shares, then likely NSD will be the depository for Clearstream, because Euroclear and Clearstream have direct accounts in the NSD. And as far as the ADRs are concerned, you would have to claim those dividends from Surgutneftegas directly, because that first period to claim those dividends through the Russian depository has been passed for the ADR dividend on Surgutneftegas. So you would have to enter talks with Surgutneftegas directly to see what their procedure is to claim those unpaid dividends. And then there is a question: do we still have time if we start a process now? I'm not sure what you mean with the question, because if you mean conversion, there is still time, but the time period is very short. And when you're talking about claiming dividends, it again depends whether you want to claim them through the Russian depository or whether you miss that time period and would claim them with the Russian issuer instead. And if you would have to claim them with the Russian issuer directly, then you probably still have time left, because that 3-year period hasn't passed yet. Then there's a question for Irina. Did you already claim Lukoil dividends? Did you claim them successfully?
Actually, this week I'm starting prepare applications for Lukoil dividends for 2022 year and 2023 year. I have necessary application forms, and this workload I just started this week for Russian investor, and in a few weeks I will have some update on this. I will have feedback how and what office accepts these application forms, what is the process. The process in general looks like submission is necessary in electronic form via email and in a paper submission format when submittance is necessary here in Moscow to be made to office of the company.
then there is a question about the Sberbank dividends. Do we still have time if we're going to start the process? So we have to differentiate between the dividends over 2022 and the dividends over 2023. So if we're talking about the dividends over 2023, then there is still time, but you have to hurry up a bit because you have to claim them before the 22nd of November 2024. So you would have to start preparations right now. And if we're talking about the 2022 dividends, then the established procedures have passed the deadlines for those established procedures, and you would have to enter discussions with Sberbank about claiming those dividends, and that may prove to be a complicated process. Yeah, what is your take on that, Irina?
I would also tell that it's important to, before the deadline for dividends 2023 in November 21st or 22, I would suggest to make a 1-2 week earlier deadline for yourself, because all participants will take time. Notary, translator. I also can be under such a workload that to organize all the process, it takes time. Because, for example, a protocol may be of 40, 50, or sometimes even 100 pages, and scanning and all other paperwork requires time. So let's do such additional earlier deadline 2 weeks before final deadline.
That is very helpful advice, Irina. Thank you. Then there's a question about the blocking of the Russian SIM cards in the middle of September. How long will it take to get your account verified at a Gazprom branch? What I understand is that you can simply enter a Gazprom Bank office and then have your SIM card verified there. I'm still trying to contact Gazprom Bank to see if you can use a representative for that. But if you want to be really sure, then my advice would be to try and travel to a Gazprom Bank office. How difficult that may be for Western investors. So yeah, that's all I can say on that. And then. Have you heard of any people who went to Russia in person and had any problems with the Russian police for made-up reasons? No, I went to Russia myself. I went to Kaliningrad, and I had a very good and pleasant experience. I know many other investors that went to Russia in person, and they had very pleasant experiences with Russians, and had no issues whatsoever. So I felt very safe in Russia, and I like my visit a lot. So I found the people very hospitable.
Let me also comment on this question. Of course, we welcome foreigners to Russia. There is high level of service here, and you may see a really pleasant atmosphere here. I can imagine that if for example, you appoint by power of attorney representative and you do not come to Russia, you may really need to purchase a SIM card, and SIM card may be purchased only personally. I just think if it's possible to purchase SIM cards, telephone, mobile SIM card by power of attorney, and I don't remember such experience. We have to try such option. I will ask mobile operators if they sell SIM cards on the ground of power of attorney for representative acting on your behalf. but actually, welcome to Russia. You will enjoy your stay here. And I can tell that Sberbank was very quick in opening bank accounts for citizens from friendly countries. Uh, Citizens from, for example, Kazakhstan or China, they were able to open ruble account at first visit to this Sberbank office. It was easy and simple. But as for investors from countries, so-called unfriendly countries, due to these geopolitical difficulties and sanctions against Russia, I would suggest to discuss the process of opening bank account in advance by email correspondence first, to understand real prospects for opening bank accounts and for opening brokers accounts. When Cifra or other brokers, for example, do not open accounts for US citizens, I know that there is one investor from US in this chat as well present. I would recommend to discuss opening brokerage accounts with Cyprus or Arab Emirates brokerage office of Russian brokerage firms. This may be some neutral jurisdictions for transfer, for conversions, and different types of operations connected with securities.
Yes, and just to add to that, I know there are many Americans that do have a brokerage account with Gazprom Bank, so that is something that could be looked into, although there's no guarantees.
Exactly, no guarantees, but Sberbank, Gazprom Bank was the most quick bank who answered my request to open bank account. They didn't refuse such a service, so this is just the way that shall be um, shall be gone through practical way.
Then there is another question: Who is the custodian of Surgutneftegas ADRs? So for Surgutneftegas, the depository bank, the Russian, or sorry, the U.S. depository bank is Bank of New York Mellon, and the Russian custodian for the depository program would be Raiffeisenbank Russia. But if you want to claim dividends on those on this. Um, on this program, on the Surgutneftegas ADRs, there you can claim dividends for the 2022 dividend registration date. So for the first dividend registration date that that passed after sanctions kicked into place, and you would have to claim them through Surgutneftegas directly. So you missed a period to claim the dividends through Raiffeisenbank. You would now have to contact Surgutneftegas directly to claim those unpaid dividends. Then let me check. Then there is someone here that converted their shares in eToro. Do you know of anyone who claimed unpaid dividends for Sberbank and had them in eToro accounts, Irina?
Can you please repeat the question?
Do you have any experience, or do you know of anyone who claimed unpaid dividends for Sberbank and had those Sberbank shares in an account with the Western broker eToro?
No, I don't know such situations. I know that all who were late to claim dividends from Raiffeisenbank as depository for dividends distribution for period 2022, and who finally claimed to Sberbank directly with before deadline end of April this year is still under review at the Sberbank. And this will still require some time, which Sberbank do not define when they come back to investors with the answer, with confirmation. So we are in position to wait a reasonable time. I hope that by the end of September they have to answer to investors and confirm applications for payments, because the deadline for applications was end of April. So let's see. And I will provide update at first available updates from Sberbank. I actually visit Sberbank near every week or every 2 weeks, and those managers in Sberbank who accepts applications do not answer what deadline for Sberbank's answers to confirm applications for payments.
Yeah. Then there's a question about Sberbank ADRs being held at swap or the American broker TD Ameritrade. So for Sberbank ADRs, it is currently not possible to convert them into the underlying shares, and the problem is that Sberbank is on the SDN list with OFAC. So OFAC has in the past issued a specific license to allow for ADR conversions for Sberbank, but that specific license expired in I think the beginning of 2023. So since the beginning of 2023, it's been basically impossible to convert Sberbank ADRs into the underlying shares because I think it's JP Morgan, that is the depository bank for the depository program of Sberbank, has closed the books since the beginning of 2023. So unfortunately, those who still hold Sberbank ADRs are in quite a difficult situation. Hopefully, OFAC will issue new licenses to hopefully resume conversion at some point. And alternatively, hopefully, the Russian central bank will, or the Russian legislator will, at some point allow ADR holders to claim those unpaid dividends.
And let me also comment to this question that Sberbank is also considers opportunity of next forced conversions and forced transfers for different ADRs and different securities, because the market participants continue to ask Sberbank to make next window of opportunities for forced conversions and forced transfers of converted shares. So this very important for many investors question is under review, is under discussion within central bank.
Yeah, and hopefully, especially after October, when probably the books will close for all ADR programs, that will hopefully be an extra argument for the Russian legislator, to the Russian legislator to reopen forced conversion or mandatory conversion. So we'll see and keep you updated about that. Then there's a question about Sberbank shares again with eToro. So yes, there is still time to claim the 2023 dividends, and we already discussed the procedure or the difficulties with claiming 2022 dividends for Sberbank, because that is outside of the established procedures. Yes, so you're still in time for the 2023 dividends. Then bum, 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 bum. Then there's a question from someone who holds Russian ordinary shares in their Interactive Brokers account, and he asks if dividends can be claimed for those shares. The answer is yes. So again, the procedure, as we discussed in this webinar, is applicable to those Russian ordinary shares held in Interactive Brokers. Then there's a shout out to Arena. Everybody hopes you are doing very well, Irina, there in Moscow.
Thank you.
Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, then there's a question about the Gazprom Bank mobile SIM card. This is very recent news, and we still have to look into this further and hopefully come up with a solution for it. So that's my answer on that. Then there's the question about converting Nor-Nickel ADRs. If we convert them this month or in the current window, is there any chance of claiming the 2023 dividends? And then I would have to go back to the sheets provided for by Raiffeisen Bank. So you would have to look on the Raiffeisen Bank website whether you can still make an application within that first window of claiming dividends with the Russian depositary. And after that, you would have to claim those dividends with the Russian issuer directly, which is likely going to be more difficult than doing it through the first stage at the Russian depositary. Do you by heart so know the time period to claim those Nor-Nickel dividends over the year 2023 through the Russian depositary, Arena?
For Nor-Nickel, there was no request to provide such service, but I am ready to start assistance for such period with this particular issue.
Yeah, I can't see it in the overview that I posted in the slide, so we would have to look into that further.
I actually don't see questions and answers the sections. I only see chat.
You can see the Q&A tab in the it's next to the chat app, but I'm not sure if everybody can see the Q&A.
I don't have such an option. Perhaps this is a more advanced version of Teams.
Then there is a question about a Canadian company that has Gazprom Bank ADRs in Interactive Brokers. Can you help me if I'm out of Europe? Probably so, right, Irina?
Unfortunately, Gazprom ADRs is in the status when no window opportunities to convert them, and central bank's officer even in media announced that if a market needs this to be again discussed, you are welcome to apply and write and claim your claims to central bank to make central bank to devote time to this and to discuss this internally. And many Russian investors and foreign investors really discuss and send claims and requests to central bank to make new window for conversion. But this will require time.
For forced conversion, but there is a current window open for standard conversion for Gazprom, and that window closes on the 20th of September because the Bank of New York Mellon has now opened the books for Gazprom. So you have up to mid-September to get your Gazprom ADRs converted. And if you're from Europe, it may be a little bit more difficult because there are some European brokers asking for the authorization granted on the basis of the European sanctions legislation. It's probably more easy if you have a broker that uses Euroclear in their chain of custody. If your broker uses Clearstream in their chain of custody, it's going to be more difficult. As they would probably ask you for authorization being granted by one of the European national competent authorities. Um, then there is the price range to verify a type C account, because Gazprom Bank in the past opened accounts remotely for investors. And if investors would like to have those Gazprom banks verified through a power of attorney, what would the costs be, more or less, Irina?
Well, power of attorney, if you mean to make it in Russian notarial office, may cost near 5,000 rubles, near 50 euro.
And then you would probably charge for your work as well. So I think it would be best to contact Irina directly, and then she will be able to provide an individual price range for this type of assignment, right?
Right. Actually, notary can do power of attorney in the form as they do. And for these specific transactions and application campaigns, I would recommend to use power of attorney in the form that were sufficient for similar processes. I can help with this. This is very easy to go through such cooperation on this subject. Just you can contact me directly and we discuss.
Yeah, and then for Gazprom Bank, again, note that we have some experience that Gazprom Bank may only accept power of attorneys that have been notarized by a Russian notary. So this is something to check with Gazprom Bank, whether they would require the power of attorney to be notarized by a Russian notary. Already you can get your own local Western notary to notarize that power of attorney. So this is something to look into and take into account.
I think that your experience, Christine, when you made a power of attorney abroad and with the electronic signature, this is more advanced experience may be used, but first such a option shall be agreed and discussed with Gazprom Bank.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm still hopeful that hopefully, using electronic apostles and electronic signatures, um, um, would help investors to get their power of attorney to Russia very quickly, because otherwise you would have to rely on regular mail services, to get your power of attorney in Russia. I think those are all the questions in the Q&A section, and I think that Bill has done a great job to forward those questions. I'm just trying to see if there is any questions in the chat still, but I think we've dealt with all of those questions. Could someone type in the chat whether we forgot that question? Or Bill and Kenkel, could you confirm that we covered all the questions that were asked in the chat? I see that someone is asking to upload the recording. Yes, and this is something that we will look into. Then maybe a more general question: how did you experience the webinar? Was it useful? Did you feel that your questions were being addressed? Did it meet your expectations? So please give us feedback on this, as we can then improve for further webinars. And I know that many investors that joined us today were from Germany, and so we'll see if there is something we can do in German maybe another time, and then we'll see if we can get you a German host, because my German isn't good enough to do it in German. So hence we opted for English, also because Irina's English is probably a lot better than her German. Yeah. And then there's a very big thank you, Irina. Thank you very much for having you here today.
Thank you. I'm very much impressed that you prepared and did such a big volume of organization and analysis. It was very interesting for me to see your experience and how many processes organized on the other side in Western countries. Thank you very much. It's very interesting and useful. And from my side, I can provide for the members of your association maybe useful information regarding the Type C accounts regime and additional questions and answers from central banks. Frequently asked questions and answers from central banks, important for investors who holds amounts and securities on S-type account.
Yes, thank you. So once we receive that information from Irina, we will post it and get it to you. So thank you very much, Irina, for that. So we're talking about the Q&A that the Russian Central Bank made for questions about the Russian Type C regime. Yeah. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great night. It's a little bit later in Russia already, and it's getting late here in Europe already as well. So thank you wherever you joined from to this webinar, and we'll hope to get back to you at some point in the future. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. Very good luck.
Goodbye. Thanks. You too.
Bye.